everybody, and welcome to our 4-part Lunch and Learn series for executive functioning. And I am here again. I haven't been on in a while, actually, probably like 4 months. I couldn't believe it. I went back and looked at when I last spoke on Facebook, and it's been a while. So I am back for every Friday between now and March 14th. We're going to be on. At 12 noon Eastern time. So you can also join us and catch the replay later if you miss this, because they're only about 10 to 12 minutes long. But I have my new executive function coach, Crystal, with me today. Hey, Crystal, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Helen?
Doing great. I was tutoring this morning and you had an appointment, and here we are.
There we are. We're sliding into home.
Right. And it's Friday. Woohoo.
That's right.
So let's start by talking about our first of 4 areas that we decided to focus in on is the foremost that we see in executive functioning that parents talk about they're having issues with. And really, even though kids you might see it in kindergartner and first graders, they're still a little young to really say, yeah, they have ADHD executive function, but we're really kind of referencing middle to high schoolers right now, but you can see it in 5th graders. I was just tutoring a 5th grader, and she definitely has ADHD executive function. She's had some coaching on that before, so it's good that she knows some things, but I've had to remind her of that because it's been a while. But so we're going to talk about task initiation, because that's one of the biggest ones. A lot of kids that are ADHD are inattentive, and then teachers can't tell what's going on with them because it doesn't show outward, like something with attention that, maybe the kid's on the floor, or they're fidgeting a lot, or they're getting up from the classroom a lot. So task initiation is our first area that we're talking about today. Then we're going to talk about, I think, emotional control next Friday. So make sure you join us. We're going to also talk about organization, and there's one more. Help me out, Crystal.
Time management and self-monitor.
Yes. So we're gonna be here every Friday at noon talking about these 4 important things. We also have blogs on my Dynamis Learning page, dynamislearningacademy.com, actually. So you can catch all our blogs there for this series. So let's talk about task initiation for a minute. Crystal, tell us, what is task initiation and why does it happen?
All right. So task initiation is the ability to get started with something, just like it says. And we all have those times where we just are having a tough time getting started. Now, when you have ADHD or executive dysfunction, this is amplified by 1,000. And the cause is usually overwhelm or underwhelm. And so we try to figure out what it is that is causing that. And so, we break it down into different categories and tackle it and just get started.
Yeah. I see this a lot. At first, really as a teacher, I don't think I knew a lot about this. This is the part that people are not, oh, sorry, I've got something running on my, sorry. I don't know where this came from. I hit something on my phone and it all popped up. So I didn't at first know, and a lot of teachers don't, because they're not really trained on this, is this whole inattentive part of ADHD. People know about the hyperactivity. Right. So I know a veteran teacher asked me one time when I was a 504 chair, well, what is the combined type? What does that mean? Because it was we would be on a 504 plan. And I said, oh, it's the inattentive and the hyperactivity. So some kids can have both. Yep. So this task initiation, I see it a lot. I personally tutor a 4th grader. He's very highly intelligent, and he's ADHD. He is medicated, but he definitely he gets all caught up in his thoughts and gets delayed writing anything down when I'm working on writing with him. Because, let's talk about some strategies that kids can use, or parents can help with at home, that can help alleviate this problem. Right. And if you can give it an example of someone you've worked with that shows this, Crystal.
Okay, so yes, let's get to the good stuff because that's what everybody's like, well, how do we deal with it? Because it really is, like I said before, it comes down to identifying what the issue is. Now, it could be that the child's overwhelmed, right? Which means they have way too many things happening. When you have ADHD or executive dysfunction, a lot of times everything is the same volume. It's very difficult to prioritize where to start. You have all this information coming from everywhere at all times, screens, people, and it just locks the child down where they just can't get started. Okay. Another area would be like self doubt or self esteem and anxiety. Now, anxiety comes from not being able to perform like their peers. And
Mm-hmm.
so, or getting in trouble for things they didn't mean to do because they have impulse control issues. And so they have this anxiety about getting started doing things because that puts them at risk. You see that a lot more with introvert people that are introverted. And so the other two would be, hey, are you tired or do you have low energy? Right? Because brains that are working so hard, they're working on all 10 cylinders when they have ADHD or executive dysfunction. Usually it's just all 10 cylinders all day. And so we have to think about, did we eat? Are we tired? Are we hungry? The last area would be, are we underwhelmed? Okay. And so this one, it's kind of like when I said it's overwhelmed or underwhelmed, the mind has to be stimulated enough to be able to start doing something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll hear it compared to trying to hold your hand over a hot stove. You have to kind of talk yourself into it. That's going to hurt, but if somebody tells you that's not going to hurt and you already think it is going to, it's going to take a lot of energy to get yourself to put your hand on it, right? And that's the same type of caliber that these children are feeling when they have to start doing that. And a lot of parents out there, you're at about a 60% chance that you have ADHD or executive function issues also if your child does. So you might know what I'm talking about. So what I like to talk about overwhelm because that's usually the case, one way or another. And so by planning the task out, just taking the steps to write out the actual steps and to try to identify maybe how long those things are going to take can help to alleviate some of the stress as going into the actual, issue or whatever it is that, you're getting started with, whether it's homework. Say, okay, well, you need to read these 2 pages and you have that written down. You go ahead, find the pages. And then the next thing is you have to take notes on these. So you have your area to take notes and you just make it a visual situation because it needs to be processed in different parts of the brain also. Because when that happens and there's anxiety surrounding it, the prefrontal cortex that's involved with all of the executive function skills is going to shut down. And so you're dealing with that also. And so there's a bit of emotional regulation involved around that as well, right? So we have to relieve the anxiety before anything else. And so another way to get started in that, as a next step would be to identify maybe how long these things are going to take. Get yourself a timer. We talk about Pomodoro timers. I'm sure you guys have heard that many, many times. Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. And it's named after those little timers, the little tomato timers, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off is or however long you want to do it, but taking the break in between. And then you set that timer to go. And so subconsciously they're going to kind of race that clock to see if they can make it for the time that they wrote down, like how long was that going to take? And that also builds at the same time some time management skills, right? So that whole process works very well for that. Also, another one, even if you have that whole process written out and you'll see the child like, I just can't do this. I just can't do this. Let them get up and walk around for a minute because first off, if they are understimulated and they walk around, you're going to get norepinephrine, endorphins, sorry. You're going to get endorphins, which in turn turns into dopamine, which stimulates the brain and will make the brain work better, right?
Right.
Second of all, walking around is going to relieve some stress and some anxiety. We all know that some sort of exercise does that. Let them get up and take a few breaths and maybe do something creative for a second. Get some water or a snack, some bubble gum, something that is a little bit stimulating, but not too stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where fidgets come in. I'm just going to throw this last little example out there, but this is where fidgets come in. You get a high quality, low sound fidget that they can have in the class, and it babysits that brain just enough where they can focus on what they're focusing on. And so having that combination of things has been the most helpful way to get people started when they're overwhelmed. I've used that same method with many, many students. I can use, one example, but it really turns out the same, that when we sit down and really think about what we're doing for a second, we realize that it's not that big of a deal. And all they have to do is just take that next step to get started. And once they get started, they're usually like, oh, I'm fine. And then they forget about the whole anxiety situation that happened and they finish their, or get mostly through their work, but make sure you're giving them the break, after the 25 minutes so that they can reevaluate what they're doing and, take a deep breath and they'll dive right back into it.
Yeah. I like the way you said a low volume or noise fidget toy. I remember when those spinners came about, they were driving all the teachers crazy. They would sit in the back of the room and they would just spin these things all the time. Yeah. And I have a fourth grader I tutor, and he's definitely ADHD, the one that's very highly intelligent. So he is medicated, but he has to get up and get a snack, and he might have just eaten a snack. And then I see him get up to go get another snack. And then, so yeah, that I let him just do that because it's just worth it. And then he usually kind of settles down after a few minutes.
Yeah. It's I like to call it babysitting the brain toddler. If you guys listen to me, anywhere else, you're going to hear me saying that a lot, because it's like there's a toddler in the brain that is pulling the distraction. It's like, hey, I want this, I need that, I want to go over here, I want to do this, mommy that, and they have to kind of satiate, like give a toy so that they can focus the rest of their energy. And however that comes about, there are lots of different ways to do it. Some kids do well when they have a lot going on, and it just depends. You have to know your child, but if there's a lot going on around, sometimes they can focus really well because it's distracting just enough, or that might overwhelm them even more. So you have to pay attention. And if they are somebody that needs that solitude to focus, then you need to be able to give them that.
So I have a question about the timer. So some kids will tell you, like this one tells me, I don't like it when you use a timer. That makes me more nervous or more anxious.
Right.
So do you suggest then that parents that have a kid that says that to them, that they use something else other than maybe the timer, or maybe, I've seen this thing where you use a regular analog clock, and maybe it's better just to show them with a marker. You kind of block out the time. Like if I'm doing writing, block out the time of 15 minutes. You guys, we have an hour of tutoring, let's say 15 minutes of this, we're going to work on the rough or the pre-write to this. Maybe we're going to just do the introduction and the question. And then maybe the next 15 is the first paragraph, maybe into the second if they're fast enough, because he's really highly intelligent. And then the next 15 might be the next paragraph. And then the last 15 might be the conclusion. And now we've got one draft in 1 hour. Do you think that works? Have you ever tried that kind of thing?
It works well. And I'm going to tell you the difference in some personality types right here, because it works well for some personality types. Okay. The ones that like a schedule, that like everything scheduled and want to follow through with those schedules and get a little anxious when they don't have the schedule. You're going to be working well with that. However, the opposite of that is somebody who gets anxious when they have to do everything at a certain interval. And when you have a person like that, you need to be able to offer them the chance to take a break if they need a break. and say, hey, if we don't finish this one in the first one, it's okay, but we're going to get as far as we can go. No big deal. Take the stress off of it. And you'll see that they actually probably will finish it anyways, because it's just the anxiety of knowing I've got to get this done. And I know that I work slower than everybody else, you know? And so removing that anxiety and saying you have a choice, they're going to at least get it started. And if there has to be a reschedule past that point, then make sure that they don't get anxious about that reschedule, because children with executive dysfunction, ADHD, they work slower. You have to have a lot of patience with that.
Right. That's
and
true.
they get a lot of pressure from the teachers, from the other students. They get a lot of pressure all the time, and it's something that just rides on them. And so if you can alleviate that stress, you know, make it a little bit fun or something like that, and say it's okay if you didn't finish this when we started. You'll see that they probably will get it done anyways.
And if you see this a lot, parents, this is when, if you don't have a Section 504 plan under the Americans with Disabilities Act, then you need to look that up, because if you're finding out your child is having a hard time getting projects done, I was going to ask you about that in a minute, Crystal, and or specific things like a writing assignment that takes longer and it's different components, but it looks overwhelming to them at first, because it's just, they look at it as like, what, you want me to write 5 paragraphs?
What?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So that's when parents, you might need to have a Section 504 plan where they get some extended time, or these things that we're talking about, because teachers, you know, they're quick moving on their time limit that they have in a class period, which is 50 minutes, and they've got to move on. If they say an essay is due by Friday and they assign it by Monday, then I'm hoping what they're doing is they're breaking these parts down for the kid. This is due today, the introduction. This is due tonight. I need you to work on the first paragraph of the body. Then I need you to work on, you know, in class, we're going to do the second part because I want to see what you've done yourself. You know, and that's why I was going to ask you about projects, because a lot of our older kids have a lot of projects, and they may have multiple projects hitting them at the same time. The science teacher is giving them one, then the language arts teacher is giving them another one, and they're all almost due around the same time. I know we're at 17 minutes, but can you quickly add, I think we should talk about scaffolding and how to break down a bigger project for older kids, especially when they have multiple projects.
Right. So multiple projects, that is like the scariest thing in the world when you have ADHD. By the way, I do as well. So I've been there. And it's because we can't prioritize. We're trying to figure out, well, which one is more important? I don't know. And then it becomes all of it in trying to figure out what to do. And so the best way to work around this is breaking it up once again. Breaking it up to the point where you're scheduling it on a calendar, saying, okay, we're going to work 30 minutes right here, you know, and this is at home. You're going to work 30 minutes right here. You're going to work 30 minutes here. Try to see how you can break it down into the smallest parts. Okay. And also try to see if you can break it up into deep work and light work. Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes you have to see where the child's energy is, because like I said before, we run on all cylinders all day. They could have been very stressed out through the day, like a lot of things going on, a lot of, you know, everything makes us tired after the end of the day. And so if you're like, okay, you only have this much energy to do this, well, we're just going to go over here and we're just going to look at the vocabulary words for this part, you know, and then on the next, you know, 30 minutes or whatever, you know, see where their energy level is. And if they can do some deep work and some research in there, then put that there. And it like I said, it all depends on the child and how the child works and how they feel about it. You know, giving them a little autonomy to say, okay, I need to work on this one right now instead of this one, because of the amount of energy that I have is important. So we need to make sure that you're understanding where they are, you know, and that helping them understand where they are with their energy levels.
Yeah. And I want to add that I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake, especially parents, where they think the kid can just automatically do this without any accountability. So either the parent, and this goes for adults too, the parent either needs to step in and make sure they do understand how to break these things down and how to attack it, because really teachers don't have a lot of time to do that, and they may not even realize your child's having this issue because they're being quiet about it.
Right.
And then you may not even know as a parent that it's happening.
Right.
So, that's where you have to kind of look over their shoulder and say, okay, what's happening with this project? Let's talk about this. Do you
Right.
need my assistance? Or that's what executive functioning coaches come in handy for, right? We go ahead and kind of say a little bit about what you do, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay, so I help with all the areas of executive dysfunction that they could have. And I have tools. I help them to identify what their goals are, short term and long term. I break those down into actionable steps, building routines and accountability, and through coaching, provide that accountability when it's needed. That's the most important part, because we never know exactly, like I said, those energy levels are always different. And people with executive dysfunction don't remember what they were supposed to be doing in the moment. Even though they know what they're supposed to do, it's the doing part where the issue is. And so I'm the one that's going to be the liaison for that, and, helping you advocate for your child. And helping them with their self-esteem in their bodies and in their brains. That's who they are, and that it's not necessarily a bad thing. We just have to learn some things that they're easy for other people.
Right. Exactly. So that's terrific. And I've put on there that we are doing a complimentary discovery call for 30 minutes. Please email info@dynamuslearningacademy.com if you want to chat about that. And the next one, next Friday, is going to be all about task initiation. It's going to be about emotional control. Then we're going to talk more about these kinds of things on March 7th, which is about task management. And then on March 14th, we're going to talk about organization, because they all kind of go together, what we were just saying about projects and things like that. So please join us. Again, we'll be giving a giveaway of an Amazon gift card on March 14th. After that one, we'll draw and I'll announce the winner. And that, you can respond on replays as well, because this will be rolling in Facebook for quite some time, at least up to 30 days. I think they have a new rule of 30 days. So thank you very much again, Crystal, for your time and coming on and sharing your expertise with us. And parents, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you again next Friday. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.